Hi there, everyone. It is currently the 1st of April 2015. Meteorologist Robert Spett here with you today. Continuing the track, Super Typhoon Maysak, also known as Chedeng now here in the Philippines. The Pagasa, the Philippine Weather Agency, uses their own naming system whenever the storm gets close enough to the Philippines, and that is what they are going to be calling it now. So we're going to actually have two names tagged on this. You may notice in the background image here a little bit different than what we typically start off with, and the main reason is because I found this image very interesting. This is actually from Astro Samantha, a cosmonaut on the International Space Station. Take a look at this. This is our Typhoon Maysak here during the early morning hours on Wednesday, and just a close-up view of that eye, and it is just absolutely beautiful from space. But if you were down here on the surface, absolutely destructive. And it does look like right around when this photo was taken, the atoll of Ulithi did take the full force of this storm system, a very small island out here, and definitely looking forward to seeing some reports out of there, and hope everybody, a population of about 700, fared well under this storm system. But I'm sure if you were inside that eye, it was absolutely incredible. Unfortunately, the eye wall, absolutely devastating. But these are just some images from space that really just give you an idea of the strength of this storm. Also here during the morning hours, we did have our storm move just north of Yap. Max winds in Yap, believe it or not, actually only reported gusting upwards about 94 kilometers per hour. The big thing, though, I think where that wind reports came out of was in the southern end of the island, the main city on Yap. I think some of the areas just towards the north probably did see winds much higher than that. Also some heavy rainfall coming with this. Right now, rain reports around 100 millimeters totally reported there on the island. So let's talk about the forecast with this storm system. Good news, it's already on a weakening trend. That is some fantastic news with it. Right now, JMA actually has winds of 100 gusting to 140 knots, pressure at 920 HPA. That is up from 905 HPA. If you don't know a lot about weather, the pressure, the lower it gets, the worse off you are. That means the stronger the storm system, especially when we're talking about tropical lows. The higher it gets, though, we're starting to see some weakening. Make no doubt, though, 920 HPA, 100 knot winds. That's still a potent storm. Do want to know, JMA and JTWC, they use different methods. They both use the Dvorak to get the intensity estimates, but they both run off a 1-minute wind scale. And also notice JTWC, military guys there, they're a little bit more aggressive with storm systems as far as their intensity. They have this at 130 gusting to 160 knots. Pagasa at 116 gusting up to 134 knots. Let's look at the bigger picture. I want to talk about this because this is going to play a big role in the forecast. I'm going to get to the forecast here. Look at our storm system where it is now, but this is the big area I want you to pay attention to. Look at this cloud coming in from west-east. It kind of looks like a plow, right? This is that trough we have been talking about for the past week now. As this trough moves over the Philippines, it's going to start to interact with our tropical system. This is what's bringing in all of that vertical wind shear we've been talking about. We've been saying that the storm will weaken due to several factors. Drier inflow, and look at that, these areas in the orange just down here towards the south, that's the dry air starting to work in. And then we have our trough coming through with the shear. And you can even see this here just north of that center of circulation. These clouds really getting pulled off, and it kind of looks like our storm is getting sandwiched right here. Look at the symmetricalness there on the first few frames. Then it starts to squeeze right up. That's that shear coming through, kind of like somebody blowing on a candle and blowing it out. Now, is the storm going to completely weaken? Highly unlikely. But think of it kind of like you're shedding off the top layers of a cake, just leaving the base down below. All the frosting is gone. Everything that kind of makes it whole is gone. And that may happen with this storm system. At least it's going to weaken up enough where it will not be that super typhoon intensity. Let's talk about the tracks here. First, from the Japan Meteorological Agency, the RSMC, with our storm, expecting it to come on shore there in central Luzon. Do want to note, this is as far as they go out with their intensity forecast. 65 gusting up to 95 knots by Saturday, a Category 1 equivalent. If we were talking about the Saffron-Simpson scale, they expect it to continue to weaken down all the way down near tropical storm intensity at landfall because of that shear coming in. The Joint Typhoon Warning Center, on their UTC update, or 03, excuse me. They did have this at 150 knots. Now, if you looked up there in the top part of the screen, 130 knots sustained at this time. Currently, actually, I think that's a little outdated. It should be down to 4 now. Still at that super typhoon intensity, but what we are going to be seeing is a continued weakening with this storm system, and they actually expected 90 gusting to 110 knots just prior to landfall, a very similar area as the Japan Meteorological Agency, once again there in central Luzon. Good news, actually, is that area of Luzon rather rural, outside of a few communities right along the coastline, which definitely need to be preparing for this. Vice, a little bit farther down here towards the south there in Visayas. I'm not saying it's any less important. I'm just saying, relatively by perspective, this is probably one of the better areas for that storm to make landfall. A lot of jungle up here. But still, this is going to come on shore, likely as a low-end typhoon or a severe tropical storm. Probably a Category 1, a Category 2 typhoon, at least my thoughts as of here on Wednesday. This is a track from Bagasa as well. I know we haven't had any information from them. This is the first update since I started making them on this storm system on Friday, I do believe. That is because they really don't start warning on these storms until they enter this imaginary box called the Philippine Area of Responsibility, if you're not used to tracking storms out here in the Western Pacific. Thus, now it's called Typhoon Chedeng, according to Bagasa. Not a big fan of the Philippine Area of Responsibility. I think it was created in a time when social media and international media wasn't as big in the Philippines, so they were able to control what people seen on the TV and basically the information they got, and they didn't want people to know about typhoons away from the Philippines. It might frighten people, but hey guys, I think this is kind of an outdated thing, but that's my personal thought. But the good news is they are in line at this time with JTWC and the Japan Meteorological Agency with that landfall out here, and that's why those preparations have already started to be put in place. People are already starting to be aware of this storm coming ashore, and actually I have been seeing some posts from the government officials looking at the type of preparations they're putting in place here, and even some evacuation shelters already slowly starting to be set up, especially there into central portions of Luzon. One of the big things I do want to stress, and I should have stressed this at the beginning of the update, is the fact that we do have a holiday weekend coming up here. It is Easter Sunday on Sunday, and Good Friday here on Friday. A lot of people are going to be moving across the country. And unfortunately, a lot of islands out here. We have a lot of ferry transportation. Waves are going to be kicking up when this storm comes close. Even though it's at a weaker intensity, it's still going to bring some high waves. You have all that energy coming with it. It's going to be very dangerous for traveling. I know that religious holidays definitely very important out here. But you remember when the Pope visited? One person died, plane crashed. Just the big thing is that make sure if you do some traveling, you want to go see some family, you want to get outside the city, you do it responsibly. That is one of the big things I do highly stress. A lot of vacationers are also going to be up and down the coastline here on some of the beaches. And I think another big issue is stay away from the water. Waves are definitely going to be very dangerous out here. So it's just something to keep in mind. I'm sure most of the people watching this update are smart enough. They know that, you just don't go in the water when these waves are very high out here. Let's take a look actually at our storm system right now. I'll give you a perspective here on Wednesday through Thursday. Those winds just continuing to pick up as this moves off there towards the west. And then eventually we start to see that weakening here with the ECMWF model by Saturday heading through Sunday. Eventually coming on shore, as I mentioned, as that tropical storm intensity. So actually let's zoom a little bit more on this, and you can even see where that center of circulation. Big thing is though, we still could see that threat of storm surge, especially just north of wherever that center comes on. Right now that's still up for some debate depending on the interaction with that trough back there towards the north, but just north of that some low-lying storm surge very well could be possible even with the storm in a weaker state. Big thing is going to be the rainfall. Some areas could see well over 100 millimeters of total precipitation, and actually that's what this graphic is right here. This is a 6-hour outlook, but what I wanted to show you was the 120-hour outlook. Some areas as much as 100 millimeters expected there in your forecast. So, hey guys, flooding is going to be a big issue, but I think the bigger problem with this storm, when it's all said and done, is just going to be transportation. Heavy rain blocking roads make it for some dangerous traveling out there, especially in parts of northeastern Luzon, even extending down there towards the south because of that precipitation coming in with the inflow ahead of the storm. But also traveling by boat across much of this area is going to be a rough go. So just be smart about it. You all know what to do with these storm systems. I do also want to leave you with this note. Even though the storm is now tracking away from Yap, we still have the recovery process going out there in Chuuk at this time. That storm was raked by this system on Sunday, and what we did see is actually winds, at least gusting over 100 kilometers per hour. Now take a look at this video. I showed this to you yesterday, and I want to end with this again because it does show you the intensity the storm system had in Chuuk, and then it moved over the islands of Yap and several other atolls there, and it was even stronger at that time. So this is what we're looking at, and I do think there is going to be some recovery for many of these Micronesian islands in the long range. It's going to be taking some time for a lot of people to recover out here. So with that said, stay safe out there. As always, thanks for watching, guys.